Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creator Sub Podcast. Dusty here, the host of the show, joined today by Patrick Rambles. We had to reschedule because of some situations on my end, but Patrick was kind enough to reschedule, and I have been super excited about this interview all day. So Patrick has a YouTube channel under his name, Patrick Rambles, where he does awesome tech videos weekly. Right at 117,000 subscribers and not even to 300 videos yet, so he's doing something right. He started his channel in April of 2020, so you could call him a COVID creator. That was not coined by me. That was Patrick himself. I love that. He's always had a passion for tech. He's a big consumer of tech YouTube himself, and he's always wondered what it would be like to start his own channel. So he did. And when the pandemic hit, he suddenly had the extra time, and he had, little or never really a moment to look back. So he took the plunge. And Patrick, I'm so glad that you're here today on the podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, Dusty.
I am really looking forward to this conversation. You've done some really interesting things on the channel. Being a fairly new channel, it's just now 2023, 3 years old in YouTube years is very, very young. So with that being the case, can you give us the origin story, the more in-depth origin story of the channel and kind of how it came to be?
Yeah, I just need to apologize in advance for being a bit sick. I have a bit of a cold, so if you hear me cough every now and then, apologies for that. But for so the YouTube channel, it's like you introduced it quite well. It was April 2020, which was, of course, right when the pandemic really hit and we all had to stay home. And I was consuming a lot of YouTube. I was actually also listening to your show, which I quite enjoyed. And I've always wondered what it would be like. Could I make these videos? I always thought, would I be able to? Would it be fun, etc.? But I never really did it because I run a business and I have a family, and I always told myself I don't have the time to do it. But then I figured I didn't have any more excuses because I didn't have any commute. I didn't have anything to do in those hours that were suddenly available. So I took the plunge, as you said. And I think I was very lucky in a way because the iPad Pro had just dropped, the iPad Pro in 2020, and I just bought it. And I didn't realize that it just dropped. I happened to just buy it, and apparently it was brand new. And it was one of the first things I did a video about. And for a new channel, it got a lot of views. I think it got like about 10,000 views in the end. And I thought that was normal. So I did a couple more videos, and of course they didn't do as well, not nearly. So it was a bit of a reality check, but I did get the taste of making videos, and I really enjoyed it. And it felt like I wanted to do more. And so I think the first one was filmed on an iPhone, and then I thought, I need a camera, because if I have a camera, I'll have camera quality videos, which you probably know is not true. I bought a camera. I didn't know the first thing about cameras, so my videos, the first couple of videos, look yellow and blurry and out of focus. So it's been a very steep learning curve.
Yeah, YouTube's kind of a learn as you go type thing, right? Like you learn a lot as you go. I remember my first live stream. I was very inexperienced with it 6 or 7 years ago, and I had a ring light behind my camera that was supposed to be illuminating and making me look better, but it was orange. And I kept asking the live viewers there. There's like 100 people in the chat. I said, "What's going on?" And I got back there, and I'm an idiot. I had the little panels still around where they ship it to you, and so it kind of had an orange tint to it, and I felt like just like, man, I should not even be doing this right now. But you learn as you go, and obviously you've learned very well because you now have almost 120,000 subscribers on the channel. And I could imagine getting 10K views on a video right off the bat really puts your expectations up here, and then as you upload, you're like, okay, that might not be the norm. So how did you learn so quickly? Like, how did you learn on the go as far as, you talking about not having experience with cameras and things like that? I watch your videos now, and I watched a bunch of them last night. You obviously have learned a lot. So what was your process like of getting up to speed for the channel?
Well, in the beginning, I realized very quickly that I didn't know anything about cameras, about lighting, because you were one step ahead of me with the ring light. I was actually seated underneath a bunch of LED spotlights in my room, and
Right.
it obviously looked terrible. And yeah, so I realized I needed to learn all about these things. And when I do like something and I dedicate, my time to it, I make the decision that I want to do this for real. I get slightly obsessed, if you will.
Mm.
So I started watching tons of YouTube videos, which is why YouTube is so amazing, right? I didn't pay a single penny for a course or anything like that. I just watched videos upon videos upon videos about how to use cameras, how to set up lights, and as I go, I keep learning things. Right now, still I'm learning new things. I'm just getting into color grading. I've been shooting, in-camera profiles. So there's always new things to learn.
There's always new stuff to learn, and it really is about consuming the content. And you talked about you kind of get obsessive over something, when you get into it. A friend of mine, we were eating supper together this weekend with my family, and we were talking about just this exact thing, how our wives give us a hard time that, when we get into something, whether it be a hobby or something that we're trying to do, we go in 100%. It's not like we're going to dip our toes in. When we do it, we're going to go hard into it. Now, we may drop it in 6 months to a year, right? Which is another issue. But I think with YouTube, you almost have to be radical or obsessive with it to a certain degree. Obviously, whatever your time will allow. What do you think has... I love asking this question, but I've tried to rephrase it over the past few months. What do you think has contributed to your success? I mean, again, 3 years, over 100,000 subscribers. What would you say has attributed to that, just from you, being behind the scenes, knowing what you've done on the channel?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. One is the obsession, because I completely agree with you. Without that, I think it's very difficult to move ahead. Uh, you'd lose interest. If you have some setbacks, you probably lose a little bit of steam. And sometimes we do, but the obsession keeps it going. I call it the obsession. It's probably not the best word, but you know what I mean. The other thing is that I really enjoyed improving my videos. So it was kind of yeah, like this quest of making everything better and better every time, making the studio a bit nicer, and eventually moving out of my bedroom into an actual studio. But the most important thing, and I really emphasize this, for me has been finding a group of fellow creators and talking to them daily and really multiple times a day. It's been a very close-knit group,
Mm-hmm.
and that has kept me alive because your family, they can be very, very supportive. And it's wonderful. Of course, I owe a lot to my family, but they will never truly understand what you're talking about as well as other creators do. So to share things like setbacks and wins and relationships with brands and all that kind of stuff with other creators that know exactly what you mean and that are just like you, similar maybe sizes, has been absolutely instrumental.
I could not agree with that more. Now, I'm going to ask a follow-up question. As you know, I've tried to form and have formed one of, I think, to be the largest and best YouTube kind of education creator communities over on our Discord server. It's a business for me as far as, people have to pay, $5 a month, which is nothing but, a little bit of a paywall, kind of put your money where your mouth is. And I've found that even by just reading and consuming the questions and answers that other people have, even if I'm not responding, I've gained so much knowledge because people see things from a different perspective than you. And to be able to see it through their eyes and their ideas and their things, it can even open up doors that you never would have thought to be open previously. And just the knowledge that multiple people bring is obviously just by numbers going to be more than just yourself. So how did you find this group of creators and how did that come to be?
Yeah, so basically, in the beginning, I didn't have that, obviously. And so what I did then is listen to podcasts like yours because you're looking for information. There's no playbook. There's nobody telling you this is how YouTube works. This is how much you should charge for a sponsorship. There's none of that. So you try to learn from other people by listening to their stories and picking up, things that they did well and maybe mistakes they made that you recognize. What happened for me is that some guy that I didn't know, he approached me and he said, "We have this WhatsApp group. of young starting creators, not young by age, but young in terms of channel. Um, would you like to join? And so I did, and it was a massive group, lots of creators from all over the world, from India to London, very, very diverse. And that was great. It was really good in the beginning because we all shared our little newbie stories, and all the little bits of advice. And then from that, we sort of formed this little closer knit, very small group of maybe 7 people. And we kind of splintered off. So we still go to the big one, but the small one is what I call my close friends right now. And those are the people that I share everything with on a daily basis. And this has been super, super helpful because we share everything, even details that we when we're working with brands and stuff. And it's so important because you can't really compare it to anything if you're just by yourself. There's nobody telling you if you're doing the right thing, or if your pricing is right, or if you're doing too many ads or anything like that. So to have that group and to sort of bounce ideas back and forth is just yeah, that's very important to me.
What do you think has been the most beneficial thing from that group, as far as if you were trying to convince someone to reach out to other creators, or if people are just listening to this and they're thinking, well, how do I find that? What advice would you give them?
Probably take to Twitter and just tweet and say that you're a new creator, or maybe not a new creator, but a creator that's looking for other creators to share ideas with, or maybe look around for Discord servers, or for groups that already exist, and see if you can join them. And you, I think Twitter is a good space for that. For me, Twitter is a hangout. I don't really have any, I don't expect anything from Twitter like you would maybe Instagram or TikTok, but Twitter is a place where I find other creators and where I can vent, and that would be a good place to start, I guess.
Now let's talk about what you wish you would have known. What's something that you wish you would have known sooner? I mean, now that you're 3 years into this, looking back at the journey thus far, you say to yourself, man, if the old Patrick would have just known this, I could have been at 200,000 subscribers.
But so many things. I think I would have spent more time getting to know cameras and lighting, especially lighting. Um, I would have probably looked actively for other creators earlier, because I got lucky that I was approached by some other guy, but I don't know how, if or when I would have found a group if it wasn't for that encounter. Um, and I think I would have asked for advice earlier on working with brands.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
those are great. When it comes to talking to brands and reaching out to them, you oftentimes creators think, well, we have to reach a certain milestone or a certain this or that, and then when they eventually do get to talk to those brands, the brand says, well, why didn't you reach out sooner, or why didn't you talk to me sooner? And you're like, wait a minute, I could have done that, right? So there is no magic number, and if anything, you kind of improve your chops of how to reach out to them, right? Even if you don't land the deal, you can improve those emails, or improve your landing pages and the pages that you're sending them to, right, or the information that you're giving them. So obviously you are monetized now with the size of your channel. So let's talk about monetization, since we just kind of talked about brands there at the last question. What do you have an idea of kind of what the average views you get per day are on your channel?
Per day, I'm not sure. I
Would
can
you
look
say
it up.
maybe per month, or just kind of maybe just in general, just trying to figure out kind of, I'm going to ask you, the next question is going to be, how much, money do you average on the AdSense program?
So in a month, I get an average of 1 million views now, but
Hmm.
that's also because I have some shorts that are doing really well, and that does cause a little bit of discrepancy in terms of AdSense, because shorts are obviously not that lucrative, at least not in AdSense terms. Um, so my average on AdSense would be around $3,000, and my views have been about 1 million.
Yeah,
Sometimes a bit less, sometimes a
sure.
bit more.
And the tech space kind of falls in the middle of kind of CPMs and the average cost per thousand or whatever is right there in the middle. I found, if you're doing finance content, it's going to be much more. If you're doing, say, art content, it's going to be that. Those are the examples I always use. So technology is kind of right there in the middle. Now, what are other ways that you're monetizing and making money from your channel?
So the first way to make money for me was to do some affiliate stuff. Obviously, the most well known probably is Amazon, and you need 0 subscribers to start doing that, right? I mean, you get clicks on your videos, you can earn a little bit of money on Amazon, and I think it's a really good way to start understanding how that works. And then later on, of course, when I started working with brands a little bit, when you're very small or maybe not that big yet, oftentimes they won't want to sponsor you just yet, but they'll offer you an affiliate partnership, so you can earn a bit of revenue for, a referral or a sale that you make through your channel.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good ways to generate some income, I think. And then when you grow a bit larger and brands are reaching out to you and they maybe want to do either a sponsored segment or a brand deal, I think that's probably the best way to finance the channel. So it's probably in that order. I think it's the lowest would be AdSense, then affiliates, and then brand deals.
So when it comes to brand deals, how are you reaching out to these brands? Can you give us an example of how this process would work?
So currently, I'm in a very lucky position that usually I don't need to anymore. There are some brands, of course, that I really aspire to work with, and I do try to still reach out to those. But in general, they find my channel, and we get to an agreement somehow. But in the beginning, I did a lot of cold emailing and a lot of, looking people up on LinkedIn, decision makers in that space, and try to get to them that way and see if we can work together. It was a lot of, and yeah, I invested a lot of time in that. So yeah, the different channels.
And you mentioned that they're reaching out to you now. What do you do to make yourself available other than obviously posting on YouTube with your content? Like, do you have a landing page? Do you have kind of, how have you kind of framed it to where you make it easy? Because I know as a creator, you don't want those brands to have to fumble through a whole bunch of stuff. You want them to be able to easily contact you, number one, and number two, know kind of what you're going to offer them. So how do you do all of that?
Yeah. So I have a website, but I do have to admit that it's been stagnant for quite some time. I haven't really updated it for, I don't know. It's a need for updating. Let's put it that way. But I do also have an Instagram page, and I have a Twitter, or X, and I made sure that I have my professional email on in my YouTube bio, so I can easily be found and reached. And usually when brands reach out, I'd say 90% it's via email. Maybe 10% they'll reach out on Instagram DMs or X. Mostly email for sure.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate you answering those questions. Now, a lot of folks are wondering, with a technology channel starting off, things like that, how did you get the products in to review and talk about? Like, what was your process like?
So at the very beginning, I would buy them. Unfortunately. So this iPad was a massive investment, of course, but it's something that I bought, and I would have bought without YouTube as well, because it's just one of those things that I like to use a lot in my work. And like I said in the beginning, I was just really lucky timing wise that it picked up. And yeah, and then I thought, this iPad seems to be really popular. Maybe I can find some nice accessories for it and do a video about those. And that did well. And then I tried to do a desk setup video with, centered around the iPad with some stuff that I had on my desk. So in the beginning, it was very much stuff that I already had, or stuff that wasn't too expensive that I could afford to do videos about. And then I tried to reach out to brands to send me things. I didn't ask for anything, just a product. And then gradually grew into, where we are now, which is seeding products and then, agreeing on some kind of deal.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is not your full-time job, right?
No.
Okay. So, how do you manage your time? This one's a big one because this is something that folks struggle with immensely when they're not doing YouTube full time. Give us some tips, behind the scenes look of how you manage your time, and have a personal life as well as a professional life, and then do YouTube as well.
Well, right now I'm pretty well lit, but my bags have bags, so that's one thing that I actually would say is an effect. I do spend a lot of time on my business, my family, and YouTube, which I really consider my second business at this stage. And yeah, that means I have very little time for other things. I go to the gym, and that's pretty much it. So my social life is intertwined with YouTube, I'd say. The rest is family and my business. Excuse me. Um, yeah, and so I think the main thing for me is juggling family life with that side of my life. We recently had twins 20 months ago now, and I already had a daughter who's now 8 years old. So it's a full house, and yeah, it's definitely some time management is needed.
Listen, my friend, if you just have twins that are under 2 years old, I got two very close friends of mine who have twins in the past 3 or 4 years, and I have two kids, but having two at once and then having 3 or 4 kids in total, kudos to you, my friend. If you are able to produce anything, you must have a wonderful partner and a wonderful family support system that allows you to do that, as do I. And which, again, that's something we talk about often here on the podcast, of how important it is to have a support system that is behind you on YouTube. Do you believe that it is possible to start YouTube in 2023 and grow a channel like you did even just 3 years ago?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think people always say YouTube saturated, tech YouTube saturated. People keep saying that. They were saying it then, and they're saying it now. I don't believe it's true. I think a lot of people start and stop. There's creators that move on to do different things. There's always new technology. That's a great thing about technology, right? It's always evolving. There's always going to be new stuff, and there's always people with fresh ideas. So I think it's never really saturated. It's just a matter of committing and trying to make good content and possibly stand out a little bit. But I would definitely say feel confident starting a channel now for sure.
Yeah, and you go completely against those myths about it being, I mean, obviously it is saturated. We're not saying that it's not, but that doesn't mean that you can't stand out and have a successful channel, because yes, YouTube is saturated, but what Patrick did going into tech YouTube, I don't know if there's anybody who would recommend that, right? Because technology YouTube is so there's so many great creators. Not only is it saturated, but it's saturated with people who do such a good job. But if you go to Patrick's channel, you're going to see why he was able to stand out. What would you say were the things that helped you stand out, like early on doing those early videos? Was it your audio? Was it the way you did your thumbnails? What do you think it was that helped you kind of get over that hump of kind of the lull of being a smaller or a beginning creator?
I think pretty cliche it was to stick to a niche quite early on. I did understand that it wasn't really helping to do too many things at once. So when I found out that this iPad stuff worked, I really doubled down on that in the beginning. And only very slowly could I branch out to other things. Even iPhones wouldn't work in the beginning. Only later on, when I had a reasonable, returning audience, I could venture out to do other things. Now I can do some other stuff, like sometimes I do some audio stuff that I like, some speakers, but generally speaking, if it's too far away from my niche, it still fails. It doesn't matter the channel size. So I think niching down was a good one. And I do think that production quality has something to do with it, because I do spend a lot of time on improving it, and I spend a lot of time on filming B-roll. So I try to make sure that it's not just my talking head, but that I actually show also what I'm talking about.
It's interesting you talked about quality of like production quality. I do also think that's one of the things that attributes to it. I've often said that early on in my channel's journey, and I just do tutorial educational content, obviously, but with that being the case, I knew early on that if I could get my audio to be top notch and I could get my videos to sound better than the other tutorial channels, that I could stand out. This was 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I was right. My audio, after about, 50 or 60 videos, I didn't master it, but I began to, I would say perfect it or make it way better than most people. And I do believe that was something that when people saw that video and they listened to my voice, they said, oh, he sounds wonderful. I can hear what he says. I believe that was a big attributing factor. So when you talk about quality, I agree with you. I watched that iPad video you did. Yes, you were yellow, but you could tell that you had some really good editing chops, and you could tell you were maybe not a perfectionist, but you were someone who really does focus on the details. So what would you tell people when it comes to quality in general on YouTube, as opposed to quantity?
I'd say try to learn as much as you can about the materials that you're using, the cameras, etc. And also just don't think that you know it. Even if it's good, don't think that you're there. There's always more to learn. I can see that now myself. I'm trying to improve. Like I said, I'm trying to get into color grading, and it's like going back to school, starting from scratch basically. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the core things for me, is to keep learning and try to keep improving.
Yeah, I think that the continual journey of optimizing and, because there are so many people who contact me and hire me to coach them of, why am I not growing? They're stuck at like that 600 subscriber range or that 1,300 subscriber range. What would you say to them, if they've been there for a while and they're just not, the ball's not rolling down the hill, and they're getting maybe 8 or 9 subscribers a day, or maybe even 20 subscribers a day, but they're just in that slow burn of YouTube that you and I both know, even though you grew so quickly, is there. What would you say to those people?
It really depends on the channel and what they look like. But what I would do in that situation is to probably find a handful of loyal viewers and try to do a live with them, or maybe something in a breakout room,
Yeah.
and ask them, what do you think? What do you like about my videos? What could be better? Just do a little mini focus group, basically.
Very, very good. I love that advice. Patrick, you have been an amazing guest. I'm sorry you're a little under the weather today, but I could not tell. You did a great job answering all the questions. Where can folks who've listened to this connect with you online?
You can find me on X, on Instagram. I have a TikTok account, but it's pretty much idle. YouTube, of course, and it's all under Patrick Rambles, so it
Yep.
should be fairly easy.
It's Patrick Rambles, Rambles, for the spelling, and that's on YouTube and across the board. Those links will be in the show notes. Patrick, thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time.